Hi Jill, thank you for joining us today.
Hello.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I can do. My name's Jill. I've been suffering with anorexia probably around about 10 to 12 years now. Not really sure about what the cause of it was, and at this point, I'm not really bothered about what the cause of it is. I'm just learning to live with it and for trying to control it rather than it control me. I have been in hospital and spent 7 months on the eating disorder unit in Cambridge about 3 years ago now. And when I came out, I thought I was doing well, but obviously I wasn't. And after about 15 months of being discharged from there, I went dangerously underweight again. And I referred myself to the personalised eating disorder unit in Peterborough, the two ladies there. They took me on and literally turned my life around. I still struggle with it, but like I say, I'm trying to control it rather than it control me.
Thank you. So you've said that your experience was anorexia. Was that your official diagnosis? And if so, how did you feel about that?
Yes, it was my official diagnosis. Well, that's literally what the doctors called it. That's what it's always been referred to. I think once, like most illnesses, because after all it is an illness, once it's diagnosed, you feel you've got something more to work on, as opposed to what's going on with me, and it was a real thing in your life as opposed to just weird voices in your head. It's real.
Yeah. Okay. So prior to becoming unwell yourself, did you have any preconceptions about mental health in general or eating disorders? Did you think anything about them before you came unwell?
When I was a child, I think about 11 or 12, I had a breakdown and was in hospital for about 2 months. And I got over that. I then got married, had a normal life, had a happy family life, had two lovely children, moved around with my husband in the army and was really quite a strong person. And no, I mean, I've always watched my weight, but never to any extreme. I've never liked to be fat, but I've never been a fat person. I've always been more on the slender side. So no, and where it came from, I've got no idea. The only thing, it happened around the time that I was made redundant and both my children grew up and left home. Whether that was a trigger or what, I don't know. But like I say, I've had lots of psychology and nothing ever sort of come up specific to what caused the illness. And like I say, I prefer to focus on getting better and controlling it than I do what caused it. That's all in the past now. Let's just move forward.
That's natural. You're only human.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did you first realise that you were unwell, or did you even realise?
I knew there was a problem when I was become obsessed by counting calories, because that's what I was doing. And all day I was thinking, well, if I didn't have that, I could cut a few more calories out. And if I didn't eat that, I could cut a few calories out. And when I started losing weight, people said to me, oh, Jill, you've lost some weight, you look good. But it then became from looking good to, oh, Jill, you've lost weight. And then it became, I couldn't stop thinking about food. Everything all my whole day and night was thinking about food and weighing myself. I was constantly weighing myself up to 10, 15 times a day sometimes. And it was my daughter, who is a nurse for learning disability, but she works within mental health, that her and my son got together, and their two partners came round one Sunday afternoon and sat me down and said, come on, Mum, you have got a problem and you've got to do something about it. And it was, luckily, I was having two grown-up children. I think you get carried away with the fact that you think something like anorexia or any form of eating disorder is all for youngsters and teenagers, but obviously it's not. It'll take you on at any time and any age or any gender, really.
You said about when you think about anorexia, you think of, the younger girls, and being an older woman who has children and things then develop this illness as well. Did you feel that, when you reached out for support or anything, people kind of didn't believe you or would question it because of your age or anything like that?
Well, I have to say I was very, very lucky, because after my children spoke to me, I did contact the doctor, and I got with a doctor who was very, very understanding, and she supported me all the way through. I mean, I've heard lots of other stories of how the doctors haven't done that, but no, I haven't experienced that. And when I was in hospital, there were 2, 3, 4 other ladies of around about my age, late 50s, early 60s, in there as well. So, we weren't in there with just all youngsters either. So it is quite surprising that it does affect any age. But no, I've had no stigma. I suppose it's harder to come to terms with because you're older and you wonder where it's come from, and why all of a sudden you've had a healthy appetite, you suddenly don't have a healthy appetite. It all becomes quite obsessive and number obsessive.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for those points. Was there anything that you were worried about prior to getting treatment?
Well, the thing that started to worry me was the fact that I couldn't do as much. I was still had a full-time job, but I couldn't do a full day's work because I became very tired. I couldn't sort of go out with my family quite so much. It became more the fact that I used to go to work and then come home, and the only thing I could do was perhaps go and lay on the bed. And I felt my social life and everything was starting to slip away from me, and just normal jobs like housework, not that anybody really wants to do that, I couldn't do that. And sometimes my husband used to have to help me up the stairs because I couldn't get up there. And then I started to realize I was losing my life with my grandsons. I've got 2 lovely grandsons, and I couldn't run around with them.
That's a new point in itself. Those are things that kind of helped you realize and what you were missing out on.
Yeah, I was losing my life, basically. Not actually. Well, I would have lost my life had I carried on. I suppose it's a little bit like a smoky thing. That's not going to happen to me. I'm not going to die from this, no matter how much weight I lose. But obviously, when blood tests start coming back showing signs that you're long-term starvation, it's not good. And it is quite frightening.
Yeah, I can imagine. And like you said, you lose you were worried about not being allowed to do things and losing your sense of self, don't you?
Yeah. And my daughter, she admits that through her own self-preservation, she could see me slowly slipping away. What she was worried about was she was going to lose her mum, I was going to die. So she started cutting herself back from me a little bit. Yeah, it had quite an impact on the family, and I think that was a big trigger.
Okay. We've spoken about in other meetings before about how individuals that have an eating disorder tend to sometimes blame either themselves or something and feel quite a lot of shame or guilt. Did you ever feel any of these things?
I felt when I started to get better, I felt sorry for what I'd done to my family, because the anorexia was becoming a less stronghold over you. I mean, it is like a voice in your head. It's like having a friend, and the anorexia becomes a friend, and you start losing everybody else. And once you start losing this bad friend, you suddenly realize that there's a lot of good people and what you put your family through. So I felt guilty and sad, really, for what I'd done to my family. But no blame.
No,
Because I don't know what caused it, so
no, absolutely.
I can't blame. And you could spend your life getting very bitter and twisted by blaming people. And yeah, I just feel sorry for what I put my family. Yeah, it's an illness you've got really no control over.
Absolutely. So when you went to services, and you've said about going to PEDS, which is a personalised eating disorder service in Peterborough, were you kind of met in a positive way? So was your experience with professionals a good one?
Well, I went, first of all, I went and had therapy in Huntingdon. CBT and all that jazz, and I didn't feel I was getting anywhere with that, and I didn't get on well with the lady, so I stopped that. And then I went back to the doctors when things were starting getting worse, and they put me to Cambridge. And again, every time you went there, you think, yes, I can go out there and I can go and buy a chocolate bar and I'm going to eat it. And when you came out there, you came out with all full of enthusiasm, but it didn't get anywhere. And I just didn't think I was getting anywhere with that until it came to the point where my daughter said, if you don't do something about this, Mum, I'm going to. You need to go under the Mental Health Act, and if you don't go in there soon like that, I'm going to step up to the mark and demand that you are. But I didn't. I went in voluntarily. But I think had I, at that one meeting when my daughter came with me, had I have not said yes, I should go into hospital, they would have sectioned me, because I was for my own safety. So yeah, I'm lucky that I've got a strong family that have stood up with me, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but yes, as soon as they realised that I was dangerously underweight, I have never come across any animosity. And when I went to Peterborough, I was on borderline. They took me on as long as I worked with them, because I was again dangerously underweight. I was at the verge of being hospitalised again, and I didn't want that. But luckily, these two ladies took me on, and they were absolutely wonderful.
And is that Mandy and Sue?
Mandy and Sue, yeah. I can't. They are my angels. They saved my life.
Oh, bless them. That's really nice.
They worked with me in as much that they could see that I was a calorie counter, so we worked on that, and instead of reducing them, I increased them. So they worked with how my brain worked, and they weren't bothered about what caused it. It was more the fact that they wanted to save my life.
And would you say they did that?
Yes, because if I hadn't been, that I would have been back in hospital. So. And getting better, I think, in the community for me is a lot better, because you've got control over, as long as you've got somebody watching you, obviously, you can, when you're in hospital, they give you food to eat, and you have to sit there and you dish it up and you have to eat it. As when you're at home, you learn how to eat more.
Yeah, you're giving the tools back into society, I guess, aren't you?
Yes, yeah, and you're living, so you've got the life and, like you say, the tools. Yeah.
Awesome. So obviously you said about your children, so your daughter and your son, speaking to you and having a conversation around they were concerned about you. Do you have any tips for anyone who is potentially concerned about someone or concerned about themselves in having a conversation around this?
It's very difficult, really. I think if you can go to somebody, if you've got suspicions, and you can go to somebody and openly talk to somebody who will support you and not judge you, and perhaps be with you and be open with them. The biggest thing with anorexia is it teaches you to be a very good liar, which is not naturally within my nature, but it just overpowers your whole body, your whole mind, and everything. It just overtakes you. Yeah, I think you need somebody next to you, either a friend, if you can approach the subject with them, who's understanding and be with you and be strong with you.
Is there things that you have now or are able to do now that you couldn't while you were unwell, and things that, you know, people can look forward to in their recovery?
Well, yes, I had to give up work, obviously. After 2.5 years of being out of work and, you know, going in the hospital and slipping right back down again, I've started working again, started at 12 hours a week. I'm now up to 33 hours a week.
Wow.
So it's nearly full time. I have my grandson I'm his like official childminder. My daughter works 3 or 4 times a week. I mean, obviously my husband's here and helps me. I couldn't have done that because my daughter wouldn't allow him to come in case. That sounds horrible. She wouldn't allow him to come because she was scared something was going to happen to me while he was here. As now I'm perfectly all right. I can go out. I can go out for meals as long as I'm well prepared. That's something that's a little bit difficult still. Yeah, I can have my family round and cook them a meal. I cooked for 12 people last year for my daughter's 40th birthday. I could never have done that before. So just generally, I just live in pretty much a normal life. And I think that's what you've got to sometimes, when you've got the voices back in your head, you have to remember that.
Because it is like voices, isn't it? People don't really assume that with an eating disorder you'd get voices, but it almost is like another person, another voice.
Oh, I stand in my kitchen and argue with it.
Oh, good. So how have you found it, you know, dealing with your mental well-being during COVID and lockdown?
Well, I'll be honest with you, I don't think it's really affected me that much because I've carried on going and done my own shopping. You know, food shopping for me and my husband. Apart from the 2 months when in the initial lockdown, I've been going to work regularly. They opened the factory and we've worked within COVID-safe positions because I just worked with me and another lady in the office. So that's all stayed fairly normal. Obviously, I missed Grayson and doing the normal things like going to the cinema and that sort of thing. I've missed, which we're getting back to. And WI, because I'm a treasurer of the WI, and I've missed church. But apart from that, I've tried to stay as positive as I can, really.
Yeah.
And I've met up with my daughter on, you know, distance walking at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't really think, in a lot of ways, my life has changed enormously, thankfully.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Okay, if there was something you could say to yourself or someone who is currently kind of going through a really difficult time with their eating disorder or eating challenges, what would you say to them?
Something that I often say to myself if I'm trying to think, oh, well, I won't eat that biscuit because it's got 54 calories in it. I can save that for that day. I would say to myself, yeah, but it's only you that's going hungry. And nobody really else gives a damn. They're not. It's only you.
Yeah. That's a good way to think of it, isn't it? Anything you want to add or anything else we've not said?
The only thing I could really think of is it is illness and being not normal is normal to us, really, and to try and seek help if you really feel you need it, because there is help out there, and try to stick with it, because you can, even if you don't fully get over it, because I never class myself still as being over it, I still battle with it, but the difference is I feel I'm in much more control than I was 18 months, 2 years ago.
You're managing it.
Yeah, it's managing it as opposed to saying, okay, just, you know, it's stronger than me. No, it's not. You can rise up against it.
But like you said, you know, I know it's hard when you're in the throes of it, but it does make you stronger, and that life is worth living and recovering for.
focus on something you really want to achieve, and you can get there if you really want to.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Jill.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching our video. For more information on eating disorders and the support available, please check out the links that are on screen. These links are also going to be in the description box below. Thanks again.